Okay, today's video is going to mainly be about tools you want to buy. I'm going to throw a few in there that you probably shouldn't buy, but mainly this is going to be about tools you want to buy. First off, I got what everybody usually affectionately refers to as the Snap-on Special Wrench. And this guy is not made by Snap-on. It's the same one that Snap-on sells, but this is by, I'm not going to even attempt to pronounce it, BAHCO, however they pronounce that. They're made in Spain, and they make them for Snap-on. But if you're doing alignments, you will not find a better plier. And I honestly recommend going with the Baco, or however you pronounce it, because they have a lot more sizes than Snap-on's got, and they're a whole lot cheaper. And on that note, I'll move on to locking pliers. The, again, quote-unquote Snap-on locking pliers are they're actually made by a company called Grip-On, and Grip-On is the same thing as Snap-on. If I had a Grip-On, I'd show you, but I haven't bought any yet. That's honestly the only Snap-on locking plier I have, and honestly I can say it's a great plier. Again, I wouldn't spend the money going through Snap-on. I'd go through the source and get it from Grip-On, but it's a great tool. Another great vice grip is the good old-fashioned vice grip brand vice grip, Irwin. They are a great vice grip. They won't fail you. They're almost as good as the Grip-ons, and for the price difference, honest to God, I see no reason not to buy vice grips. And if money's really a factor and you're really hard up, the ones from Harbor Freight don't suck. They're not horrible. They're actually a decent tool. They're not as good as the vice grip brand or the Grip-On brand, obviously, but they work. I mean, I got nothing bad to say about them. On that note, we'll talk about a tool not to buy. This is a channel lock from Harbor Freight. And these are the worst channel locks I've ever had in my life. It was a 3-piece set, and I snapped both the other ones, and I know I could have gotten them replaced for nothing because they're a lifetime warranty, but they're useless. If anytime you look at them wrong, they're going to snap a jaw off on you. So on that note, I'll let you know a vice grip, or a channel lock to buy. The Knipex, they're not, this isn't a Cobra. The Cobra's got a push button, but this is the exact same thing as the Cobra without the push button. I forget the name, but if you go online and look up Knipex adjustable plier, you'll find them, and they are amazing. You can literally put these on a pipe. Here, you got something around here that resembles a pipe. You put these on a pipe, and they will actually these are a little, well, I'll put it to you this way. If you put pressure on that back jaw, they will not let go. You can stand on the back of this plier and it will not fail you. Those are the ones I highly recommend. And a close second would be these guys. As far as channel locks go, I'll take the Knipex over any of them, but vice grip makes a decent plier. Actually, this little flat jaw guy, I don't know if you can see there, but he's actually got a flat jaw. This thing is amazing for taking off sway bar links and just getting into tight spots. He works almost as good as the Knipex. I can say that the Knipex will fit in a little bit tighter spot than he will, but all in all, it's a good plier. On that note, another great plier is the Channel Lock brand Parrot pliers. These things are just like them Knipex Cobras. You put them on something and they will not let go. As long as you're applying pressure to that back handle, it is going to bite on what you're biting on and not let go. These are along this, that's actually a battery plier, and it's exactly the same thing as the Parrot plier, just smaller. Another great product by Channellock is, I believe they're called end cutting pliers, and the name lies. They are useless for cutting. They can't cut butter, but they grab stuff and get in places that nothing else can. They just got two little knurls at the end that come out, and they will bite onto stuff like you would not believe. A product I wouldn't recommend buying from Channellock is these little oil filter pliers. And I reckon there's probably a spot somewhere where they'll get you out of a jam, but I've had nothing but horrible luck with them. They're a pain to grab, and they're just useless. Don't waste your money. On that note, a good oil filter wrench to buy is this 3-jaw guy right here. You can get them from Harbor Freight. You can get them almost anywhere. What I'll say is, if it feels quality, it's probably going to hold up forever. And again, within reason. If you got a adapter on there and you got a 6-foot 1/2-inch breaker bar on it, you're going to break something. But oil filters should not be that tight, as we all know. Sometimes they aren't. But it's a lifetime warranty. That's from Harbor Freight, and if you break it, you take it in, they'll give you a new one. And I can tell you that from experience. I have broke it, and I won't blame the tool. The oil filter was on there ignorantly tight, and that should have never happened. A tool that I will rant and rave about are these Knipex plier wrenches. It is just an amazing tool. These things, I just can't say enough good about them. I mean, the bigger ones, I got about 6 of these in all different sizes. These are little ones. A lot of these tools I'm showing you today are smaller because I brought them all home from work and space was a factor. But these are great for AN fittings. What you do is you adjust it and you get it close to the fastener you're putting it on. And when you put it on there, you grab. And how like a normal ordinary open jaw wrench can spread, these will not spread. The tighter you grab, the tighter they're going, and they just don't spread. They're an amazing tool, the Knipex plier wrench. Another amazing tool by Knipex is this, it's a mini bolt cutter. And what I've come to find is that if it fits in the jaws, those things will cut it. They are just amazing. A close second to those would be the Knipex long side cutters, long dikes, long cable cutters. Well, no, that wouldn't be a cable cutter, but long side cutters. They are amazing. And again, another tool that if you don't have the money to blow on those, because they are expensive. If you're a backyard guy or somebody who's not doing it every day for a living, this, I have to say, takes a close second. And again, you got to pay attention when you're buying them. When you buy them, actually go in the store and look at these jaws. Make sure they're machined right. Make sure that the teeth bite all the way, and just make sure they look right. And once in a while, you'll find one with a bigger head than another one's got and stuff like that. You just got to make sure they're machined right. If you pick out a pair that's machined right, they'll serve you well. I've had these for years, and there's a lot of times I grab those in place of the Knipex, and I love them. They're a great plier. Another great tool by Knipex is this cable cutter. And I know you can use a razor blade, you can use a side cutter, you can use stuff like that, but these cable cutters, they cut a straight line with one nip. It's no jerking around. And anytime I've cutting a hose or something like that with a side cutter, you always get that angled cut, and I hate it. I absolutely hate it. I guess next we can talk about ratchets. And I got a few to show you. The first two I'll show you are actually, it's a really cool idea. And one I would highly recommend buying, and one I would highly recommend not buying. And there again, I mean, you can be a judge yourself. It might work for you or it won't work for me. But I just found this head is just ignorantly big. I mean, I hate to say it, but the head on this guy's ignorantly big. I've got another ratchet over here, and this is actually a slimline design, but you can tell that's a big frickin' head. And like I say, this guy's 3 times that size. But the cool part about these, I know you noticed on this guy, he's got a handle on the back. When you turn that handle, it will actually turn to drive, which is really cool. And this one actually, I can kind of see use for it because it's got this handle where you can kind of spin it, and it'll take place of, per se, an air ratchet or an electric ratchet when you don't have power or don't have access to it. But this guy, his head's so much smaller, and for starting bolts, he is just amazing. This guy's a Blackhawk, and Stanley makes one too. I believe the Stanley's a couple bucks cheaper, and if I had to guess, I'd say it was probably the exact same ratchet, the Blackhawk or the Stanley. This guy is a Qual Connect, and again, I don't recommend buying it. If you see a use for it, go nuts, but I wouldn't recommend it. This guy is a Pittsburgh Pro. This is from Harbor Freight, and I've seen these on the tool trucks, and they sell them on the tool truck for about double to triple what Harbor Freight sells them for. This is an amazing ratchet for getting serpentine belts off, for getting in tight spaces, for timing belts, for when you don't want to be stuffing your arm down in there. You can put a socket on him and he's long enough to get in there, and they're just, it's an amazing ratchet. I can't say enough good about it. And on that note, I'll go to the traditional style ratchets. That's a floppy head, that's a fixed head, and that's a fixed head. And honestly, just for general work, all around working, I prefer a fixed head. Sorry about that pause there. And the fixed head, my go-to ratchet is this guy right here. It's a Husky. It came in a set of spline drive sockets, and I love the spline drive sockets almost as much as I love the ratchet. This is my go-to. I use him daily. And this is the longer handle snap-on. You can tell he's just a bit shorter than that. From what I've found, it just seems to be the perfect size. The shorter ratchets seem to be too short, and when the longer ratchets are too long, he just works perfect. You got enough leverage with him, but he's not so long he's banging into a frickin' fender wall. And I can't say enough good about this ratchet. I fell on hard times. I lost every last tool I had, and this was the first ratchet I bought, and I love it. I love it to pieces. Honest to God, I wouldn't own a snap-on ratchet, except I gave this as a gift to my father years and years ago, and after I lost all my tools, he sent it back to me. It meant the world to me, and honest to God, I don't even have the heart to use it. It just sits there. But it is a great ratchet. There again, I mean, if you want to have one ratchet and one ratchet only that you're going to depend on, buy a snap-on. I mean, there's no if, and, or doubt about it. But most mechanics I know out there got multiple ratchets in their box, and if you're going to have more than one ratchet, I'd recommend going with the Husky, going with the Pittsburgh Pro. Oh, I do have one more ratchet to show you. This was a phenomenal deal. The teeth aren't quite as tight as on the other guy. I mean, they're tight. I believe it's 88 teeth or somewhere around there. It's a Matco ratchet. It's a Matco Advantage. And Matco actually had a special on these. I believe I paid like 32 bucks or something for this thing. It was right around $30, and it was just a phenomenal deal. And if you haven't noticed a trend, there aren't many tool truck tools that I buy, but there are a few, and this is one that I just rant and rave about. When a normal trim tool won't get in and work good, this guy is just phenomenal. Basically, if you got the little fork style and he's not working, or you got the big puller style, he's not working, usually this guy will get in there and just get the job done. I can't explain it, but it's a phenomenal tool. Another tool for getting into tight places that helps out immensely is hose picks. And this is just an off-brand hose pick. Gear Wrench makes good hose picks. There's a lot of companies that make great hose picks. Basically, I buy something this was dirt cheap, and I've been using it for years. I haven't bent it, I haven't broke it, and again, how you're using dictates how it's going to last too. If you're trying to use this to pry a seized on caliper bracket off, you're probably going to bend them in a U. But if you're taking care of them, they usually last forever. And they're great for digging picks off, for getting electrical connectors. Electrical connectors, these are a must for it. And I'm sorry, there's no rhyme or reason to the tools I'm showing you, but these guys are phenomenal. And this guy, I believe this is a Lyle. This is made in USA. This is a Lyle. I'm almost positive that's a Lyle. But I hate to say it, I'll take these Harbor Freight ones over these guys any day. Not that the spring release is that big of a deal, but it's nice to have it. And these have that little bit of an angle to them where these don't, where they just get in tighter spaces and work so much better. And on a note of tight spaces, I'll show you a few pair of pliers here that work great. These little guys are the old snap-on ignition pliers. This is one tool I'll say they don't make it anymore. You gotta buy it used and you gotta find it. But when you find it, you guard it with your life. These are amazing. There's a guy that works on motorcycles online, Shane Conley. I watched a video by Shane Conley on these, and for screws on motorcycle carburetors, if they're too tight and it feels like you're gonna strip it with a screwdriver, you probably are. Don't stop. Grab one of these, and its vice grip just don't work. The heads on them are too big. I mean, even if you got a small pair of vice grip, they just don't work on screws. These guys will grab a hold of that screw and just turn them out. It's amazing. It's either going to snap it off or turn it out. And these are along the same lines as those. These are vamp pliers. And if you see them, they're not gimmicky crap. They're actually a very, very good tool. The vamp pliers are awesome. The only pair I have are these little guys. And again, I was using them for motorcycle screws and the like. But they are just amazing. And these guys, I love these guys. These are Crescent brand, and I believe I got these from Home Depot for, I'm almost positive it was under 10 bucks. And these are great if you got like a frozen lock cylinder or something like that. You put the key in there and you take the smallest hammer you got and you just tap on it, and these will turn them right out. And I'll go to a couple of traditional tools, and again, if you're on a budget and you can't afford Knipex or Snap-on or the like, and one thing I will say is Knipex takes Snap-on on pretty much every plier they make, and I won't say for certain because there might be something out there that they got them on, but as a whole, Knipex is far better than Snap-on as far as pliers go. But there again, if you have limited resources and you can't afford to go out and buy Knipex or Snap-on, these are a great option. These are the Doyle brand from Harbor Freight. And these are pretty good. They don't suck. And on the flip note, these come in one of them little sets from Harbor Freight, and they're pretty much worthless. Probably good for a paperweight. I mean, for obvious stuff that's just a little too hard to grab with your hand, yeah, they'll take care of it. But I don't know. I hate them. They're garbage. But on that note, a good tool from Harbor Freight would be these guys. They're wire strippers. And, oh, I probably got 10 pair of these. Normally they have a spring in between here. These, the spring must have gone somewhere, but even still, they're great. And that spring, once you've been turning a wrench for long enough, you can work a plier without having a spring in the middle. Don't get me wrong, it's kind of nice, but yeah. Another great tool that I actually found on Amazon is this guy. And this is actually kind of like a stud extractor type deal. But what it is, it's like a reverse drill chuck. When you turn it backwards, it'll bite down on the fastener and just turn them right out. I've only used it once, but I hate to say it, the time I used it, it pretty much paid for itself. I think it was under 20 bucks, and I was getting studs out of exhaust flange, and I heated up the flange and zapped this on there, and it's got a 3/8 drive right in the end of it, or a big hex. I just put my air ratchet in the back of the 3/8 drive and zipped the stud right out. It was beautiful. I was highly impressed. It's a ARES, whatever that is. And on that note, another cool tool that I just love. I thought it looked cool, and I kind of bought it on a whim, and I figured, I'm going to use it 3 times, and it'll sit in my toolbox and collect dust. No, I use this thing daily. I use her every single day. It's got a hammer end on it, and Ave kind of turned me on to these. I don't know if anybody's ever seen his channel, but he's a bright dude. He knows what he's doing. If you're concerned about language, don't watch him, but you can definitely learn something from the guy. But it's obviously got the adjustable wrench, and if you flip the jaw around, it's got the pipe jaw, and then the hammer, obviously. And on the flip side, it's got a quote-unquote nail puller. I've never pulled a nail with it, but I can tell you, if you forgot a trim tool and you got a couple trim clips to pop off and an inner fender well or something, I've used them for that. I've used them for prying calipers off. I've used them for, basically when I do a brake job, I take this guy, I beat the pads out with them, I flip it over, I pop the shims off the caliper bracket with them, then I get to cleaning up my caliper bracket and the like. But yeah, I highly recommend that tool. Another tool I think I recommend, but I haven't really used them enough to say, is this guy. This is a brake line bending plier. I got them from Harbor Freight, and honest to God, I put them in my toolbox and I forgot all about them. I used them a couple times and forgot about them, and a couple times I used them, I think there was a burr on it I had to clean off or something, but I haven't been dissatisfied. I think it's a pretty cool tool for bending brake line, getting into tight spots. It works good. A brake line bender I will highly recommend is this thing. I got this from Northern, and this is another one I kind of bought on a whim, and I didn't think I'd use it very much, but I use this thing every time I'm dealing with 3/16 brake line, sometimes even quarter. You just put your brake line in there, and here, we'll give you a 90, and she'll bend it. I mean, obviously this is from a spool of brake line, and it's not going to be the prettiest. I didn't tug it straight or anything like that, but I highly recommend that guy. Another tool I highly recommend, and this one I must say that you're probably going to be using more than one tool when you use it. You're not breaking anything stubborn free with it, but 9 times out of 10 how I've used it is if I had a bolt in a tight spot, I'd go in there, crack it free with a wrench, and once I cracked it free with the wrench, I could usually weasel him in there and zip it out with an air ratchet. And again, I haven't used that tool enough to really rant and rave and praise about it, but I can say it has gotten me out of a few tight spots. It's a Husky 8-inch Flex 3/8 extension. Pardon a little slur there. Another must-have tool are a good pair of spark plug pliers, and who are these? I think these are Lyle, or I'm almost positive these are Lyle. But I haven't even used these yet, but I'm positive these are a great tool. I've had a few bosses that I borrowed them from all the time. I have no idea why I haven't bought a set sooner. I used to have a crappy pair before I lost all my tools, and they're not worth having. Spend a little bit of extra money, and again, they're under 20 bucks. If you're doing any kind of ignition work, and you can, if you're careful enough, and if you got good insulation on them, mind you. If they're all beat up and the insulation's gone, obviously it's not going to work, but you can tug an ignition boot off without getting shocked. And I don't endorse that, nor am I saying that you should go out and do that. Do that at your own risk. But from my personal experience, I've done it and got away, and they were great. Another must-have tool, and this is a Matco, but I only bought Matco because I didn't realize that I could get, I'm not going to say off-brand, but a cheaper brand that would suffice. And since then, I've found a set for, I believe it's right around $100. And these were $250, I want to say, right around $250. I don't regret buying them. I can honestly say that since I do the work every day for a living, they're worth having a Matco. On the flip side, another great cheap tool to have are these guys. They're from Harbor Freight. They're a thumb wheel basically. It's I got quarter, 3/8, and a half. I think the whole set